What is up, everyone? Welcome to the live Q&A here on Optimus Fantasy. I am Nate Polvogt here for week 15 of fantasy football, week 1 of the playoffs. We've got DFS and betting galore this week with no bye weeks. I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Keith Fleming over there in Atlanta. Keith, how are you doing this fine Friday?
Doing better because it's warming up a little bit. We've had like an unseasonably cold spell where it's been in the 20s at night and maybe the high 40s, maybe 51 degrees for going on 2 weeks. And I am not built for that, man. I'll just go ahead and admit that. So I've been freezing my balls off, but it's luckily going to warm up this weekend. Actually, it looks like it's going to be nice next week. So I'm ready for the typical Georgia weather this time of year, not the crap that's been here.
See, that's normal for us. We're actually thrilled because on Saturday, tomorrow, it's going to be almost 60 here, which is wildly unusual for middle of December. Usually it's like 20 degrees, which I'm sure it's coming. Right?
So what do people do out there when you get that unseasonal? Just a lot of people outside or?
Oh, people are outside no matter what the weather's like here. We're a very outdoorsy state, especially around the metro area. We're west of the city, so we're close to the mountains. And people adapt their bikes to ride in the snow. People put studs.
Really? So they have tires and stuff? Is that what Okay, cool.
Yeah. We're an outdoorsy state. Jen and I just got into kind of the cold weather outdoor stuff. So we just bought a bunch of, we got crampon spikes for our boots so we can hike in snow and ice. And we got poles and we got some cold weather snowboarding pants for it. So us Coloradans are nuts, but we're used to it too. I mean, it just gets freaking cold.
We need to take notes. Do you remember Snowmageddon and the whole, country making fun of us because we got 4 inches of snow? And the city was basically shut down for 4 days because all the roads then iced over, and it was a mess, man.
We went to Vegas. My wife and I, Jen, thought we might get married in Vegas because we were annoyed with one side of the family. So we went to Vegas just to kind of peep some spots, and it was in December of I think 2008, and they'd gotten 2 inches of snow the night before. Our flight almost didn't leave Denver, where we had 8 inches of snow, and everything was shut down in Vegas. It was wild. The tram was shut down. There was nobody really out on the streets. People were wearing parkas and it was 50 degrees. It was wild. But we're used to it here. If you go up into the mountains in the winter, if you want to ski,
for sure.
Yep. Be ready to be skiing in 5-degree weather. So what's not going to be 5-degree weather this weekend are most of these games here, Keith, on the week 15 slate. Let's get into some of these bigger matchups. The first one I want to talk about is the Lions and the Bills. This game has the potential. The over-under right now is 54.5. So Vegas obviously thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. I do believe, yes, Detroit's favored by 2.5 here. The game is at Ford Field. How are you feeling about this game from a fantasy perspective? Obviously, you really want to be a part of this game. I've taken the over here. What players are you targeting specifically in this game?
On the Lions side, obviously St. Brown. The Bills run one of the highest zone rates in the NFL. And I mean, we know St. Brown just eats zone. So that's really good. And I think there's going to be a lot of scoring, to your point, which you don't have to worry about what's happened in some of these other weeks where St. Brown, they kind of take the foot off the gas. But the big one is again, I know you sometimes feel a little leery about PFF and, all that kind of stuff, but the highest offensive to defensive advantage matchup this week is by far the Detroit Lions. 80%. It's one of the highest ones I've seen in recent memory. So obviously Gibbs and Montgomery are going to, if they do what they do, have a very big day. On the Buffalo side, obviously Josh Allen. And then the guys that to me are really intriguing are Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper because the Lions run so much man. They give up a lot of big plays in the passing game. And I got to admit, I kind of forgot because everything was, wrapped up in the Josh Allen hoopla of that Rams game last week. Cooper saw 14 targets. That was more than he had seen in the 4 previous games that he played with the Bills. So it looks like maybe they're starting to get him, back involved. And this is a guy that for his career has about a 30% target share versus man defense, which again, the Lions run at the highest rate in the NFL.
And their secondary is not great. Jamie Prague wants to know, do you think a big game from Shakir is incoming? Jamie has him top 20 in his rankings. I've got Khalil Shakir, wide receiver 33 right now in my rankings. How do you feel about this, Keith? Where do you think he ends up this week?
I mean, it just depends on the volume. Because again, like his fantasy points per target are pretty much identical versus man zone. It's just his target rate shrinks so much. He's a guy that's like over 30% versus zone, in the low 20s versus a team that runs, a lot of man. So that's my only concern is like, how many targets does he get?
Sure.
What is the Buffalo's, offensive plan? And there is a chance the Lions say, look, we don't want Josh Allen out there doing what he does. I told you, it's a huge advantage. Lions offensive line versus Bills defensive line. Is this one of those games where they're just like, we're going to pound the rock and try to play keep away, which that could also hurt just, Bills pass attempts and, all the receivers slightly.
All right, we've got this one in the chat, Keith. Jorge wants it over there on YouTube. Are we going with Malik Neighbors or Jalen Waddle this week in full PPR?
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I like Jalen Waddle over Neighbors. Like,
Me too.
It's hard to trust Neighbors when the Giants offensive line without Andrew Thomas just can't pass protect. And that's why you saw so many targets to Bellinger and Wan'Dale Robinson. They had 18 targets last week. And then you have on the other side a pass funnel defense and the Houston Texans that are so good versus the run, but real issues versus the pass. And Miami has condensed their offense. Like, that is one of the reasons I think they're excelling now is Tua is basically throwing the ball to 4 people. It's A-Chain, Tyreek, Waddle, and Jonnu Smith, and that's it. And the Texans play a good bit of man, which Waddle obviously is also excels at. So I do like Waddle. I think he has both maybe the safer floor and the higher ceiling.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I've been pounding the table for Jalen Waddle all week because of this matchup. Houston's a 4th worst defense against wide receivers in fantasy. They're allowing 30.8 half PPR points right now to the position. This game is ripe for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But on the other side, I want to highlight this comment here. Vince Mapstone in the chat saying, hate to say it, but I can't start Neighbors anywhere right now. You can't. He's still seeing the targets, but the quality of the targets from Drew Lock are so poor. It's not going to get any better when Tommy DeVito comes back, if he comes back. So Neighbors is a guy I can't trust him in the fantasy playoffs. There's too much variance in what he can do from week to week. There's no real floor for him anymore.
I mean, I agree. The one thing I will say is I always say never because I don't know your roster construction and who you're going up against. And volume is always nice. Like, even if it's, really inconsistent, just knowing a guy's going to get targeted. Sometimes I'd play him over, certain wide receiver threes, but 100% agree that it's a shame because I think that if he got decent QB play, it could have been really a special rookie wide receiver. We've already seen Neighbors as that dude. They just got to get Andrew Thomas healthy next year and then get somebody to throw him the ball.
Well, they're going to address that in the draft, right? Like, we're assuming that the Giants are going to be smart in this draft. Well, they'd be real smart to fire Joel Schoen, but that's just my own personal feelings after watching Hard Knocks, I guess. Drew Lock, who would have thought Daniel Jones was better for these guys in fantasy than these other 2 quarterbacks? A lot of people were calling for Lock to get an opportunity to start at the beginning of the season. Let him compete. Let him play. Oh, now you see what you got. You got a dead Malik Neighbors, who was actually valuable the first part of the season. So we got another one in here.
Andrew Thomas, though, again, has a huge part of that. Because, since Thomas has been out, they just can't protect enough to push it down the field.
And that's a fair point. We got Mega Brick on YouTube, Keith. Hey, guys. Hello, Mega Brick. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button down there at the bottom of the screen. Week 1 of the playoffs for me, I dodged a bullet by benching Purdy for Goff because I saw game time weather, shot myself in the foot by starting Jawan Jennings. That was I didn't know that the weather was going to be so poor. And then, of course, we were out taking the kid to Santa Claus and stuff, and I missed anything about that weather coming up. That was bad. That had a really negative effect on that game. I mean, Cooper Kupp, 0 points.
Yeah,
that can ruin seasons. I had Cooper Kupp, I think, wide receiver 11. I had Puka at wide receiver 3. That game was just a disaster. All field goals.
Disaster for the Niners, especially because that played into their hands. Like, to me, if you'd have told me it was going to be that kind of game, advantage Niners, and for them to lose it, it sucks. I will admit, selfishly, huge for me and Scott Fishbowl because I had Kyron Williams, and then that hurts everybody that had, Cooper and Purdy and Stafford and, even Puka didn't have a monster, like all those guys. So I took that as, a little bit of a W for me, but Nobody wants to see this Rams team in the playoffs. I can tell you that.
Absolutely
I would not want to face them. That offense is really good.
They're dangerous. And I think it's funny. And people are like, I can't believe Matthew Stafford's all of a sudden this good.
No.
Well,
come on.
Two
now.
top 10 wide receivers at your disposal versus DeMarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell.
Yep.
Yeah, come on. All right. Vince, Scott Fishbowl 14. Who is the odd man out here? We've got Tyrone Tracy, Sincere McCormick, Romo Dunze, or the Chargers legend Stone Smart. Who's the odd man out here, Keith?
Because it's tight end premium, for me, it would be a Dunze. Again, I don't know what is the cause of it, but for whatever reason, Caleb is extremely inaccurate to Roma Dunze. And he's nowhere near as inaccurate to any other pass catcher. But that really concerns me to where I know, Sincere and Tracy are going to get touches, obviously, no matter how bad the matchup is. And these tight ends, man, like I played Grant Calcaterra last week to advance over Mac Jones and a bunch of other people. And it worked out because he got me 14 points with like 3 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown. Just that tight end premium makes me, lean towards the tight end in most matchups unless it's a stud.
Yeah, I'm with you. Stone Smart's an interesting one. He got 3 targets after Disley went out around the half, caught all 3 of them. So he looked pretty good. And this is a Chargers offense that likes the tight ends. And if Stone Smart can get the job done, Herbert's going to target him. And especially if our poster child on the thumbnail today, Lad McConkey, can't go.
Yes.
I like him as well. Either way, I like this call. We've got Sam Piazza over there on YouTube, half PPR. Would you play Neighbors or Braylon Allen if Hall doesn't play? Also, Vikings D or Ravens D? Keith, let's start with Neighbors or Braylon Allen.
I would lean Neighbors, and this is what I was talking about, like where it's a difficult decision. Jags, another one of these teams that they're a pass funnel. Like they're 16th DVOA versus the run, dead last versus the pass. Like I think Rodgers has a huge day. 60% of his passes since the Devontae Adams trade has gone to Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. And we kind of saw last week, right? Like he finally went over 300 yards. No surprise that was the first game without Breece Hall. With that half point, like on volume alone, hopefully Neighbors can get you 10 points,
I think he can. I would go Neighbors as well. There's too much going on between Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis in that backfield.
Did not expect that. Did you last week? Like I was like, this is the Allen show, and it was not that way.
I thought it was going to be the Allen show as well. But I mostly told people just to stay away from that if they could. Mega Brick here wants to know full PPR. What do I do now?
That defense question? It was Vikings. I think.
Let's get back to the defense. Vikings or Ravens. Sorry about that, Sam. We're going to get to here. I'm going to go Ravens defense this week.
Yeah, I think that's the play because I know that Williams has because that's who Minnesota's playing, right? Chicago? I know Caleb has his issue. He takes some sacks, but he doesn't really turn it over. And I just think that there's a good chance the Ravens can force some turnover versus Drew Luck. And again, just an awful offensive line without Andrew Thomas.
Oh, absolutely atrocious. Okay, Mega Brick. Here we are for you, buddy. Sit 1, Judy, London, Amon-Ra. For me, it's Drake London easily.
Yeah, I think that as much as I hate to say it, the Cedric Tillman, like the Njoku news is the big one. If Njoku sits with Tillman out, 100% agree. Now, if for some reason Njoku ends up playing, I think it's close. Like I actually may like London slightly more than Judy just because he consistently gets such a volume. But sure. I can't trust this Falcons freaking passing attack until Michael Penix is put in. Kirk Cousins can't move. And it's disappointing because you got all these great weapons that are being held back right now by a quarterback who is washed or injured, one of the two.
Both, probably.
Yeah.
You look at him let's say we're going to look at London's last 4 games, 13 targets, 8 catches, 7 targets, 3 catches, 16 targets, 9 catches, 10 targets, 5 catches. The volume's there. He had the 9 for 86 and he had 21 fantasy points in week 13, but that's 7 balls he could have caught. And that's concerning. If his volume dips at all from week to week, what are we looking at? 5 targets, 1 catch. And then you're having no fun. I know we love the talent of Drake London, Wait until Michael Penix is quarterback. That's going to change things. I never thought I'd say that, but he is 100%
Must win for us. We're
right
going to lean on, I think, Bijan and I think this is a game you'll see a lot of running from the Falcons with Bijan and Algier. They're going to try to help Cousins as much as they can.
Tyler Algier, RB 1 week. Got it. We know that's how it's going to go.
Right.
Robert Hootwin. Hey, guys, I got the donut from Cup. Irving is iffy and Walker is doubtful. I need 2 running backs and a flex. He's got Rico Dowdle, Rashad White, Braylon Allen, and Amari Cooper. Save me. I want to start here with running back. I'm going to say right off the bat, Rico Dowdle's a start.
No, not that. I can't believe about the Breece Hall part because I just read a report yesterday they were going to plan on shutting him down. And he's right. Like Breece Hall practiced fully today, which is, what are you doing?
This Jets organization is full of idiots. That's the problem. Woody Johnson's just not a good owner. He's proving it over and over. This team can't get out of their own freaking way. Okay,
I love that he wants to play, but it's like, dude, like this is where you have to protect the player and say, bro, it's not happening. We're shutting it down.
Right. 100%. Yeah. Okay. Rashad White then. If Breece Hall is trending up, I'm going to say Rashad White, especially because Bucky Irving, if he doesn't play, that's a lot of volume for Rashad White that I love.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust Bucky even if he's ruled to play. After last week, what is it? Fool me once. Shame on you, as George W. Bush was. Fool me again. I won't get fooled again or something. And I just want to add for the Dowdle thing. Like, what a great time to have him with these issues. The last 2 weeks among running backs, 4th in attempts, 1st in rushing yards, 6th in yards per carry, 1st yards after contact, 4th in forced missed tackles, 1st in carries of 10-plus yards. And, oh, by the way, Panthers allow 20 yards more than any other team in the NFL to opposing running backs. So, like, I feel great about Dowdle, and I'm with you about White. Really either way with Bucky, he's going to be probably the featured back.
Yeah, I would assume. Something I want to point out about Rico Dowdle, 112 and 131 yards in his last 2 games. He's got a touchdown, 3 targets, 3 catches against the Giants in week 13. And this Carolina defense, we can all agree they're terrible and you should be targeting them in fantasy. But it's gotten even more attractive with their offense getting better because now Carolina can actually freaking score, and it's forcing other teams to have to score points to beat them. Now, they can do it because their defense is so bad, but we saw it last week. Carolina almost pulled off that game against Philly because their offense is getting better. Should have. They should have won that game. Yeah. Yeah, right? Oh, man. What a bummer. I know he wishes he could have that back, but that's just making it more enticing to start guys against them over these next couple of weeks because – these teams have to score all of a sudden. It's not over by the first quarter, so you're getting competitive games at least. We've got Mega Bricks. Same lineup as the last question. Full PPR, start Cade Otton or Hunter Henry?
I can't sit Hunter Henry, especially in a plus matchup for Drake May. It's just he's basically the number 1 wide receiver or pass catcher in the Pats offense, and this is a good matchup for May. Like, I actually think that, again, Otton's not a terrible play, especially if Bucky's out. That's just, more targets kind of to go around. But I think Hunter Henry is the safe play, and he's due for a monster game because he's only had like one kind of, I think like 20-point game since May's took over.
Well, I'd like to see him score a damn touchdown.
Right.
I mean, can we get that, please?
That's all he used to do, too, is the funny part. Like, that's all he used to do. And now he's catching passes and he can't just stretch out.
Well, the thing, 9, 8, and 9 targets the last 3 weeks. I've been harping on this for now 2 damn weeks because I still can't believe he's sub 50% rostered at ESPN. It blows my mind. He is the leading receiver in terms of targets, receptions, and yards on this team. The only thing he doesn't lead is in touchdowns. Could he get hot here? These last, I don't know, 3 weeks of the fantasy season, 4 weeks of the season? I think he could. I absolutely think he could. Man, we only have 4 games left, Keith. That is just wild.
I'm not happy.
I can't believe it. I know. I'm sad.
At least DFS, hey guys, though, you get the playoffs too. So I always tell people I got 8 weeks of gambling with DFS. So that's okay.
Yeah, that's true. Me too. Vince Mapstone started Jennings and Scott Fishbowl 14. He is the one guy I will say I have been telling you guys this was going to blow up in your faces eventually. Just like Nick Westbrook-Akine. I started him anyway until he blew up in my face. Are you starting Nick Westbrook-Akine this weekend? Speaking of which,
I mean, I understand if you want to, right? Like, because the Bengals are going to score a gazillion points and they're going to be throwing. But if I have better options, like, I would rather play them. But it's like a wide receiver 3. I don't hate it. I mean, there's definitely worse options, but it's not for me like an automatic start.
Right.
Like it's say a wide receiver 3. I need to know like who are you starting them over?
Nobody. Look, Tennessee, Will Levis has got a cannon for an arm. No one's going to argue that, but the guy just makes such bad decisions in the pocket and out of the pocket. 19 of 32 last week, 168 yards, didn't even have 100 at the half.
You can't do it versus Jacksonville. It ain't going to happen. That's the worst pass defense by far in the NFL.
Well, and they're playing Cincinnati, and it's not like Cincinnati's defense is good. Their remaining schedule, Cincinnati, at Indy, at Jacksonville. Most quarterbacks should be like, yes, please.
Yeah,
I would love to get you do it. With Will Levis, you can't do it against Jacksonville. Who can you do it against? Like you said.
Is it bad I want Mason Rudolph? Like, I actually think Rudolph would have a better chance. And this is not a knock to Levis. Levis is a better quarterback overall, but Rudolph is actually somebody that's more accurate and can just take what he gets, let Ridley and them do their things. I'm interested to see what the Titans do next year because I think Levis has talent. You're just going to need a special coach, offensive coordinator whisper to kind of get it to come out of him and build an offense around what he excels at.
Well, what they need to do is relegate him back to college, send him to the University of North Carolina under the tutelage of Bill Belichick for the next 3 seasons, send him back to the NFL. I think he'll be okay. Let's talk about that. That's one of the stranger stories this week. Bill Belichick, not just going to a college program, but the University of North Carolina. This is a program that they're not in the news ever. The most notable thing they did was Drake May and not even Drake May, Mitch Trubisky. I mean, this program is nothing.
However, makes sense for me, honestly. Like, does it? So here's the deal. A lot of people are looking at it, and I am a little surprised that the 13 games and all-time winning coach obviously does not mean anything to him, but I actually have more respect for him. But I think he looks at it that college is now very similar to the pros, right? He even said this on the McAfee show that, you have the draft in the NFL, or you have recruitment in college. You have free agency in the NFL, you have the NIL. And I think he's looking at it that, like my school, Georgia, we're not nearly as deep as we were a few years ago because of the NIL, because you're not going to be able to stockpile 4 or 5. So he knows the talent disparity is less than what it's been in recent years. Unquestionably, he's going to be able to coach those guys up and out-coach 95% of the coaches across the field. And let's be honest, ACC is not that strong. Like I look at like what has happened at Arizona State, where this young man's came in and immediately got them in the playoffs. And for Belichick's legacy, I do think in many ways, like if he gets North Carolina, say, in a national championship or a national semifinals or whatever in the next 4 or 5 years, that might actually be bigger for his legacy than winning at the NFL. And I love hearing him say that he wants to make it a factory where, look, you come to North Carolina, I will teach you how to be a professional football player and give you the great opportunity to play at the next level. And I think that's going to work with a lot of kids. I'm excited to see this because maybe we get a little different Belichick. At least from the press conference, it seems like it's a more open, more loving, because he's not going to be able to treat the kids, be the kind of the grump that he was in the NFL. Because now with the NIL, kids are going to go, okay, you're going to be a dick. I'm going to transfer to so-and-so. So he's got to at least soften a little bit.
Well, I mean, his girlfriend's teaching him how to hang out with college-age kids, so I'm sure he'll figure it out. It's fine. This didn't make a whole ton. It made a ton of sense to me on the Carolina side, right? Because, anytime that you can get someone who is probably, as soon as he's eligible, will be voted into the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest coaches who ever lived. But what I didn't know, and I think this is why Bill Belichick did it. I don't know if you saw the press conference, but that was the first place his dad ever coached.
And his son supposedly is coaching waiting. Like that was not, obviously they can't promote that, but that was rumored to be one of the big sticking points for him. Was his son be coaching waiting? And that makes sense, right? Like, again, this is something I actually respect for him, that he's less worried about records, but coaching with his son and setting his son up to get an opportunity to do this, right? Like as a head coach. So more power to Belichick. It's interesting, right? Like, I mean, Deion, look at what Deion's done at Colorado. I'm actually really excited to see what Belichick does at North Carolina.
I am too. I think this program is going to be infinitely more nationally recognized than they've been. I mean, let's be honest. We don't talk about the University of North Carolina Tar Heels football program ever. This week, they're in the news over bowl games, some massive NFL matchups. We've got other big stories going on in the news, but front and center is the University of North Carolina football program. This is exactly why they hired Bill Belichick, because now they went from being a nothing program to they are a nationally, everyone knows the University of North Carolina, and now we all want to see what they're going to do. Let's pop in here. We've got a question from Jamie Andrews, Henry, or Cade Otton this week.
Again, for me, it's Henry. Like I love the guaranteed volume, and I do think that it's a particularly good matchup for May this week. So I'm going to lean Henry.
Yeah, I'm with you. I could be swayed for Mark Andrews. I like the matchup against the Giants, blah, 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 blah. But we know we always get screwed by Mark Andrews. At least we know Henry's going to see the volume. We've got all in one show tuning in on YouTube. Pick one flex out of this group. We've got Drake London, T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, James.
I believe I know Nate said he was having some internet issues before we started, so I'm going to finish this one until he probably jumps back on. You got Drake London, T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, James Conner, Pacheco, and Waddle, all in one show. If you could let me know if this is a full point PPR. You back, bro?
Kind of. Working on it here.
It's all fun and games until somebody loses connection. Right. All right, I'm back.
Stupid internet.
You know, on this one here, I mean, gotta get my.
I asked him, is this PPR? Because that makes a big difference. If it's a full point
10
PPR,
10-team full PPR.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm probably leaning London. As much as I just talked about, I don't like London. He's got the highest ceiling in this group for me.
So the only guy that for me, it's three people for sure that are like kind of in a tier above. It's London, Waddle, who again, I love the matchup. And then the other one is just James Conner. We are seeing this Arizona team lean more and more on Conner in recent weeks. This is a New England defense that you can run on. And let's be honest, the Cardinals are hemorrhaging. Their playoff hopes are dwindling. But the way Kyler's been playing, I would much rather rely on a heavy dose of James Conner than I would a heavy dose of, Kyler Murray airing it out. So
sure.
I understand that. But again, I think the volume's great with London. And I do think even with it being the Raiders, the Falcons defense has been so bad, they're going to score points to where London, I'd be shocked if London doesn't get 10 targets because he basically does that every week anyway.
Yeah, I do think there's a chance we see Michael Penix in the second half of this game if they're losing.
From your lips to God's ears, please, man.
Well, he ain't going to listen to me. I stopped going to Catholic school in 8th grade. He doesn't like me
Somebody
anymore.
needs to.
Yeah. Jamie Prague wants to know if we think we're going to see North Carolina players shoot up in the NFL drafts. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. I think that you're going to see organizations that flat out will funnel, especially with the NIL and the way there can be so much turnover. They're going to be asking Belichick every year what guy, because they know this guy knows how to get specific kinds of football players that a lot of teams desire.
Right. Yeah. Can North Carolina win a national champion? Can they be relevant enough to even sniff the college football playoffs next year?
I don't know about next year, but it would not surprise me to. I look at Colorado and I think it's going to be a similar deal where he'll be, I think, better than expected because, again, the ACC is kind of weak. I'd be shocked if he doesn't win 6-7 games. But I think that once you give Belichick 2 years, I think, especially because if you think about it, he can play a lot more of that early Patriot style where I think they're going to try to muddy it up, right? Out coach, out technique people. And there's a lot of programs you can beat that way because a lot of teams can't tackle. A lot of coaches make baffling decisions late in games. And, you're coaching against, no matter what you think of the Patriots, arguably the greatest coach of all time. Oh, are you muted, Nate? Or there we go.
There we go.
I was worried. I was like, oh, something happened.
I got it. We got a new router. We're switching our internet. We're with Xfinity now. We're going to try out Verizon. So
you almost missed my Billy Madison. Your lips are moving, but I can't make out the words. I'm deaf.
That's one of my wife's favorite movies. She can literally quote it start to finish without even watching it.
I immediately know your wife's amazing just for that. So
no, awesome. She's incredible. Herms wants to, not to claim to be a college expert here, but being in the ACC gives Billy a decent edge. Not exactly the toughest conference, and that's true. The ACC used to be. Do you remember the days when it was like Miami and Florida State were just every single freaking year were just absolute powerhouses, and that's just not at all the case anymore. Clemson was good.
SMU was in the ACC championship game in their first year in the conference. So yeah, like I think Bill Belichick can compete in the ACC immediately.
How do you feel about Texas making the SEC championship in their first season in the SEC?
I'm not going to lie. It's a Georgia guy. Like, I was very nervous about losing that game to Texas because we've talked a lot of smack about wait till you come into the SEC. I will say, though, Texas, if you look at it, had the easiest of roads. Like, and it's just going to be that way now with the way the conference is. But, like, they didn't play Georgia. You know, I mean, they played Georgia was the only top, basically, SEC team they played in the regular season.
Yeah.
They got beat in their place by 15 points. And, you know, the fact that, again, we beat them with our starting quarterback getting hurt, I still think they got a ways to go, but I'll just go ahead and admit Texas is a lot better overall than I expected to be, and Oklahoma is a lot worse, which both kind of shocked me.
I'm totally fine with Oklahoma sucking. As an old school Big 8 fan from way back in the day, aging myself, I hate Oklahoma. Bo Schellenberger, I hated that man. He kept beating CU in these big games when it's like, we almost won the conference and you keep taking it away from us. Herms, also, I'm catching up on Senior Bowl invites, and man, are we in for quite the trip. Hella good prospects. It has been. This is going to be a really good Senior Bowl in Mobile. I'm really looking forward to it. Are you coming out for that, Keith?
95% yes. I'm trying to finalize now who's going with me, but worst case, screw it. I'll get a room going myself. So yeah, actually, I should just say, yeah, I'm going.
Yeah, we might have a room at our Airbnb for you. We'll talk about this off the air.
Let me know.
Definitely. Yep. All in One Show wants to know, and then we're going to get you guys out of here as the chat has slowed down. I have a sore throat and a basketball practice to go to. All in One Show, should I beat myself up about starting Jennings? I should have changed the lineup since weather was bad for the first half. No, there's no way to know. And even in bad weather games, a lot of times these guys are professional athletes. They're going to ball out no matter what. We saw it last week. Don't beat yourself up over it. It happens, man.
You should blame the Niners for force feeding Debo. Honestly, that was the issue. Like, I don't know why. Jennings and Kittle actually were pretty good with the targets they got. They just, for whatever reason, felt dead set to proving a point because Debo was complaining, and I don't think it was the point that Debo wanted to make.
Yeah. And All in One Show saying, hopefully Burrow, Gibbs, Jacobs, Kelsey, and London Carey. That's a pretty good lineup to have starting. Joe Burrow's having statistically an MVP type season. Just it's not showing up in the scoreboard, unfortunately, for the Bengals. All right, guys. Well, we are going to get out of here so you can enjoy the rest of your Friday and we can enjoy ours. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. As always, if you've got more questions come Sunday, please check us out on Reddit, r/fantasy football, 11 a.m. Eastern, right up until kickoff. Mike Reedy and I will be answering your questions. Keith, we hit 627 last week. Yeah, it's rad.
Doing the Lord's work, man. I love that.
I'll tell you what, our first week 1 for the AMA, 1,300 questions in an hour and 30 minutes.
How many people? You just have 2 people answering them?
Just me and Mike. And actually last week, I think Mike only got to about 30 questions. I ended up answering most of them.
How were your thumbs?
Very sore, sir. Very sore. It's not.
You probably type more words per minute on your phone than anybody. And
I will tell you what, a lot of one-word answers. Like if you've got 2 players you're asking me about, I'm giving you a last name and I am moving on to the next one. And Homeboy, who keeps calling us an AI bot, if you could please stop dropping into the chat with those really long things. I get tricked into reading them and I'm trying to help other people. So we are not AI. I wish. That sounds dope. But that we are not. All right, guys, we are out of here. Enjoy your weekend. Get out there, win some money. Keith, it's been a pleasure. Folks, we will see you next week. Adios.